Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Dr. Tyler Panzner, and I found him on Instagram, as I find most of my guests, and he brings a special message today about genetic therapy. I guess testing your DNA to analyze your individuality as a person and what protocols, what supplements, etc., could be useful for you. And I thought he'd be very interesting to have on. So thanks for coming on, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Really appreciate you having me on and happy to share my message of what I think is the future of medicine.
So, what is that future of medicine? Explain it better than I did.
Sure. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of personalized medicine. They're currently utilizing personalized medicine for things such as personalizing cancer treatments is one of the main ways. So they'll actually sequence your tumor's DNA, which is different from your regular cell DNA. That's, it's your own cell that mutates that cause the cancer. And they could figure out if it'll be more sensitive to radiation or certain chemotherapies or certain immunotherapies based on the mutational landscape of the tumor cell itself. But what I'm interested in is applying that in all aspects of health, and especially with the preventative, more holistic side of things. So I got my Ph.D. in pharmacology. I studied breast cancer, tumor immunology, immunotherapies for 5-6 years. And I just kind of wanted to apply that type of thinking towards keeping people healthy in the first place. I think so many people they're not sick enough to be in the hospital, but they're far from thriving. They're living with this subclinical, so below the threshold where you have to go to the hospital for inflammation or anxiety, depression. They may not be on medications, but they're taking all these different mood boosting supplements that, from my experience in my practice, a lot of times can actually make people worse because some of these supplements don't agree with your DNA, or they don't agree based on the mechanisms on how they work with your DNA. So I'm trying to really pave the way and kind of combine the thinking of conventional medicine, because I have the formal traditional education side of things for the deep science as a pharmacology Ph.D., but bring that to the holistic sphere. Because to me, whether it's a chemotherapy drug, whether it's Adderall, whether it's LSD, whether it's curcumin, all of these things are drugs in my opinion. Anything that interacts with the human physiology, the human body, to me is a drug. So I can apply that pharmacology, that mechanistic cell biology thinking, and really try to make hyper precision natural remedies.
Man, that's so interesting. What got you interested in this field in general?
So I was always interested in science, and I did my PhD, as I said, cellular molecular pharmacology, and I studied neuropharmacology. It's still one of my greatest passions. So how drugs, substances, vitamins, whatever it is, directly affect your mood, your behavior, your consciousness. I was making my own pre-workouts before the PhD, just anything that kind of alters how you feel immediately. Yes, chronic health conditions are very important, but what got me into it initially was, what can I take right now? What supplement or whatever can literally alter my reality? And by alter my reality, I mean, you get a little more dopamine, your entire worldview shifts for that period of time. Conversely, if you're low in serotonin or dopamine, you're going to have that pessimistic view of everything and kind of be in that rut of life. But the second half of my PhD, I did, as I mentioned, tumor immunology, inflammation, and 23andMe kind of really started becoming a thing. And I kind of put two and two together that I'm not super sick, but like I was living with a lot of inflammation. I have a lot of genes that make me very prone to inflammation, a leaky gut, allergies, etc. So if I understand my own DNA, maybe there's ways I can supplement. Maybe my body's missing a certain intermediate form of a nutrient because the enzyme that creates that in my body doesn't work as well. Or maybe an inflammatory pathway is by default hyperactive. Now that doesn't mean I'll always have a lot of inflammation in that pathway, but minor insults, minor stimuli of inflammation will be much more severe in me. So that's what really got me down that rabbit hole. And I was doing this really like control searching raw data from 23andMe, like super archaic method with friends and family for the last 2-3 years of my PhD. And I decided I want to go all in on the personalized medicine. And I really like it too, because as a pharmacologist and personalized medicine, it's really not narrowed into any one field. While I do have expertise in neurological things in the brain, cancer, inflammation, you can apply this to anything. So I really wanted to kind of move forward with that and really try to innovate in on the space with that. So right now I'm working for a clinical genomics company. So they're kind of doing what I mentioned before, personalizing cancer treatments. They'll sequence you and your spouse before you have a child to check for any genetic diseases. They'll actually sequence the amniotic fluid in utero to test a very newly developed fetus to test for any genetic abnormalities. But as I said, I love that. It's very interesting. But my true passion is applying that mode of thinking towards holistic medicine. So about 3 or so months ago, I launched my own, I call it holistic genetic health coaching program. I'm trying to figure out a way to really say, I think that sums it up the best. So taking people that aren't, as I said, super ill, sick, or dying, and just optimizing their life. And I can tell everyone listening, every single human being has mutations that they can take actionable steps to either bypass or improve upon. It just depends. Also, your lifestyle is important too. I'll never be that guy saying genetics are everything. Take my supplements, it'll fix everything. Depending on the person, depending how your lifestyle is, some people feel, 30% better after they work with me. Some people are, in their words, cured overnight because their stuff was mostly genetic related. So everyone can benefit. There's no one with no mutations. Everyone has mutations. It just depends in your personal space what you want out of your life. Not everyone wants to be this, completely optimized human being. Some people just want to fix their nagging pains, their allergies, their little bit of anxiety. And that's where I come into play with that.
Man, that's so interesting. And you must have done a DNA test on yourself. What did you find, and what are you currently implementing after that's worked for you?
Yeah, so I got my 23andMe done many, many years ago. And one of the first genes, actually my favorite gene, the COMT gene, this is the gene when your brain cells release catecholamines, so adrenaline and dopamine. Your brain has enzymes that break it down. This COMT enzyme breaks down dopamine and adrenaline after your brain releases them. Well, I have 2 mutations in that gene. So I break down dopamine and adrenaline 4 times slower than the average person. So what does that mean? That means under normal conditions, usually I'm more alert, better mood, more excitable, more extroverted, more type A personality because I have higher levels of dopamine and adrenaline at all times on average. But the downside is when I get stressed and my body pumps out adrenaline, I get very overwhelmed. So that makes me also very prone to anxiety. So knowing that about myself, things such as magnesium or SAMe are 2 supplements that have been shown to help speed up the enzyme to kind of take the edge off a little bit. In addition, certain types of B vitamins don't agree with my body a lot. A lot of people talk about the MTHFR gene with methylated B vitamins. That sends me off the deep end with severe anxiety due to my COMT mutation. So I take adenosine and hydroxyl B12, 2 end-stage metabolism forms of B12. They're kind of like niche, but I feel the best I've ever felt on them. Regular B12 didn't do much. I also have mutations with how I absorb B12, how I activate B12. So I found the exact type of B12 for me.
That's so interesting to me. Like, you sometimes see these people on Instagram saying, "Oh, take this. This is like the pill that helps everyone." I love your strategy of, no, it's way more complicated than that. Every individual has different set of genes, different mutations, different experience, and you don't want to just do a one size fits all for supplements, for protocols, for anything. And that I find really, really interesting. And
Absolutely, and it's not even just the supplements themselves, even like the diets. And like you see on Instagram, you have the plant-based group, you have, the Liver King Carnivore MD group, you have the oxalate-free group, the lectin-free group, the keto group, the high-carb group. And it's like, I'm here to say all these people are right and wrong, depending on who the person is. Like, don't tell me that plants are toxic to everybody. You throw oxalates, how they're so harmful to you, like it's this boogeyman. But if you don't have mutations in how you process oxalates, 99% of the time, they are not going to be bothersome to you. And plants have so many good phytonutrients that have been proven to enhance lifespan, to reduce inflammation, to promote overall health and wellness. So it's like all these different camps, these extremist camps, the more polarizing you are, the bigger you get on Instagram. I'm kind of here to say and add the nuance to that and say these types of individuals with these mutations make sense for that and not this, and that. So adding that nuance to everything, I really think is key. And you know what? It may not be best for, driving sales for whatever you're selling, but like I'm here to get to the bottom, to the truth of things and really optimize everything. I want to have every minute I'm alive, I want to have the best minute I can. So really optimize everything out of it. When you just simply want to not be super sick, it's one thing, but when you want to thrive, you need to go into the details with these things.
Yeah, I really love that. I saw you post quite a few stories regarding Carnivore MD, talking along those lines of, kind of deconstructing it. Like, he's right, but also wrong, and he's not being nuanced. He's cherry picking. And honestly, someone who's not that educated like myself on this topic, I kind of got sucked in for like a month or two. Like, wow, I shouldn't eat any vegetables ever. But it grips you, and he's gained this large following. But I'm glad I found someone like you who can dissect that for me and really do the deep analysis. And so thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's kind of why I'm here. I'm really trying, like I said, add the nuance to all these different things because, like, even with that, for example, I know that talking to some of my clinician friends, the rates of vitamin A overdose toxicity went through the roof the past year or two because from all the liver consumption, because we didn't evolve to eat liver all the time. It is extremely high it's a nutrient powerhouse. I am pro organ meats. I am pro liver. However, taking liver every single day, whether it's in the 6 pills a day or eating a bunch of it every day, we evolved to eat berries and stuff. And then when you killed an animal, you eat a bunch of liver and then it gets stored in your fat cells. It's a fat soluble vitamin. So you don't need to be having it every single day. Now, if someone has mutations in vitamin A absorption or vitamin A activation, meaning plant sources of vitamin A won't be beneficial to them, then their dose of liver may need to be higher.
That's so interesting. I actually have never tried liver, but I probably should, but not.
I'm not gonna
all the
lie, I'm
time.
definitely not. I've had it a few times. I don't implement it. It's one of those things. My resolution this past year was to implement more organ meats, and it's just kind of slipped through the cracks, I guess. You know what I mean? I feel the best I felt in my life now, so I'm not constant. I'm not with the current stack I'm on now and everything, my lifestyle and everything. I'm not always like, oh, I need that now. I want to try it, but it's like, life gets in the way, especially when you're feeling good. You're not thinking about what else you need to put in your body.
Yeah, definitely. And so the company you work for, is that called SelfDecode?
Yes. So SelfDecode. So I am a practitioner with SelfDecode, and it's essentially like 23andMe just on steroids, like way more advanced. They utilize artificial intelligence you can upload your DNA from other sites. So you don't need to get resequenced. I uploaded my 23andMe data there, and I think it goes from like 400,000 variants or something. And then with the artificial intelligence, it gets 83 million out of that. So their bread and butter is really using artificial intelligence to interpret or impute far more data. In addition, they do something called polygenic risk scoring. So a lot of the current other companies out there will give you a list of individual mutations. Polygenic meaning multiple genic genes. They'll take hundreds of thousands, if not even I've seen over 1 million genes that are all in an interactome involved with something like, I don't know, histamine intolerance, let's say. And it'll take thousands and thousands of genes, all with the machine learning, and tell you your overall risk, whether it's higher or lower. It'll also give you individual genes that are mutated, the major genes with personalized supplement recommendations. But the fact that they're doing a polygenic risk scoring is really, really ahead of the curve. I don't see any other companies doing that. Not that you can't learn a lot by knowing individual mutations, but just because you have one mutation doesn't necessarily mean you'll be off the deep end with whatever that health ailment may be. That can be the case, but as much as we know about genetics, we still know next to nothing. So, I would say looking at people's genomes with my clients, most of the time, I don't need to ask if they're anxious. I could just look at it and they're like, oh my God, I'm anxious. And I would say probably 8 or 9 out of 10 times it matches up like exactly how you would. Once in a while, there's people that may have that COMT mutation I mentioned and they're not that anxious. Well, they may not have other mutations that cause anxiety that kind of, piggyback on with that and synergize. So one gene can be very important, but not always. But yeah, SelfDecode, super ahead of the game, and I'm really, really grateful for their platform, enabling me to do what I love, because as a practitioner, I can, advertise, market myself, have clients, upload that, have their entire platform to search whatever I want, send them reports. So it's really, really an awesome platform, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Man, that's awesome. And how does one take a DNA test? Do you like spit into something?
Yep.
Like I don't even know.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So most of the ones, there's some that are finger prick, but the vast majority are spit in a tube. SelfDecode, they have their own DNA kit as well, of course, but there really isn't much of a difference. Like clients say, I got 23andMe 7 years ago. Do I need to redo it? I'm like, well, no, your DNA never changes. The gene expression can change based on lifestyle somewhat, but your DNA is pretty much, it's locked in. So you can upload that because a lot of people got 23andMe years ago. They tell you if you think cilantro tastes like soap or something. Like they give you some weird, it's cool and interesting, but I'm focused on actionable things that will have immediate improvements in your health.
Yeah, awesome. I think I'm gonna have to try that. I've never gotten a DNA test, and it seems so
Yeah,
interesting.
they ship globally. So basically, I have clients in Poland, the UK, Australia, Canada, all over the place. So they ship globally with that.
Yeah, I've been hugely on this train of biohacking. Like I intermittent fast, hit workout, sauna, cold plunge. Try to just better myself in a lot of ways. Try to get outside. Try to limit my blue light. I'm not always the best at that, but like any way I can optimize my life, I'm totally down. And this is opening up a new box that I never really would have thought of. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm gonna have to do some research, and we can maybe work together after this. So
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'd love to.
yeah, that's awesome. What's been the most amazing success story when working with a client?
I think the best success stories are working with clients that are on a slew of different prescription medications. So they're on an SSRI for their depression. They're on Adderall for their energy, and they're on Xanax to help put them to bed. And these clients, it's much more difficult to work with clients, especially when it comes to mood issues when they're already on current medications, because a lot of the natural remedies that I have for these mutations, they'll directly clash with a lot of these medications. So it takes cooperating with their prescribing doctor or their psychiatrist to kind of wean off things, but also add in the natural booster so the withdrawals aren't as bad. But I just think it's successfully getting people, not only getting them off of their medication, because I do think the medications, some people need these medications, but I think it is less than 10% of people that are currently on them. So you do need them for certain people have really wonky genes where that is their puzzle piece cure. But not just getting them off of them, but getting them off of them and having them say that's the best they felt. So that's most of my clients usually are, kind of sort of like you, or they're not feeling the best, but they're not on all these medications yet. They reach out to me to kind of do that first, which I think is the way to go. But the best success stories to me are getting people off these medications and having them say, "This is the best I felt."
That is awesome. I bet that brings meaning to your life, being able to help people
So
in that way.
much, so much, absolutely.
Awesome. And I guess I also was interested in your analysis of psilocybin because I've heard you talk about that. And what's your opinion of that? Like,
Yeah, so I'm very vocal about my support for the psychedelic therapies. Like the therapeutic promise is just immense for everything from obviously everyone's heard of mood disorders, anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD. There's psilocybin clinical trials for bulimia, anorexia. So these neurological complications that cause differences in behavior, um, and even neurodegeneration. So they work in part by literally growing new brain cells. So when your brain's wasting away due to Alzheimer's or dementia, these can be a very promising remedy. In addition, they're also very anti-inflammatory. So some autoimmune conditions. There's some data with LSD, I think, for sciatica or arthritis pain, because it in part rewires the brain. So those pain signals, those pain circuits are downregulated, but also it'll help resolve that inflammation there. For the inflammation stuff, that's obviously a lower microdose, a chronic type of thing. When it comes to mood disorders and trauma, that's when those macro doses with the trained clinician come into play to help you revisit things, suppress memories, bring them up to the forefront, and discuss them in an unbiased manner. When people think about these traumatic events that happen to them, they have this fear response. They get flooded with adrenaline and they don't want to talk about it. They get stressed and they shut down. And a lot of these psychedelics, these medicines, they suppress that. So you can openly talk about these things. So I'm all for it. And I think it's really, really going to be the future. And what's really interesting too, I've actually been seeing in my practice. So the specific serotonin receptor that psilocybin binds to can actually be mutated. So everyone thinks of serotonin as high or low serotonin levels, but that individual receptor, that one of 7 major receptors that serotonin binds to, can be mutated. So their serotonin levels are fine. So you put them on SSRIs, and yes, you may increase the signaling to the one mutant receptor, but all the other ones are going to be overstimulated and bring side effects. So for those types of people, microdosing psilocybin or some of these psychedelics could literally be the perfect puzzle piece. Cured is a strong word. Whatever the word right below cure, I don't like using the word cure, like the most optimal treatment for them. And science has shown that these receptors, these types of mutations, lead to bipolar depression or unipolar depression or generalized anxiety disorder. And it's been shown these receptors don't respond as well to serotonin. Now, the one missing piece is, and this is where the futuristic look into things comes into play. There haven't been studies showing, do people with this mutation actually respond better to psychedelics, microdosing or whatever. So it's, it's one of those things. I would wager yes. And, I don't, if clients mention to me, I've had clients say, I've had depression. I tried, microdosing the psilocybin and I felt so much better. What do you think about that? And I'm like, well, actually you have that mutation in that receptor. So that's actually, one of the most optimal things you could be doing. But then you have the other side of people that say, it hasn't been shown in a rigorous, randomized human control trial, this and that. And I want to innovate now, and it's not even just on the psychedelic side of things, but just the overall thought process. I'm under the line of thinking that if I see a bacteria study that this mutation in humans, if they do it to a bacteria, it causes a deficit in some certain type of vitamin. If I see that, and that's the same mutation that happens in humans or an animal, a mouse or whatever, and I see a client that has that, I have no problem suggesting that specific supplement for that client because we're talking about natural supplements here. We're not talking about addictive chemotherapies. The risk is next to zero. The worst side effects I've had from clients from trying some supplements, if it may not be exactly how we thought they would react, 3 hours of anxiety, or they're a little tired, or a little bit of nausea, but a couple of hours, they're back to normal. Or the next day, they're back to normal, and that's it. And now we know. And, oh no, you wasted $30-$40 on the bottle of the supplements. Like, if that's the biggest repercussions for trying to innovate and critically and think outside the box, then so be it. I'm fine with that. But there are some types of people that think, that's not evidence-based. But to me, if you have something A causes B and another thing shows B causes C, me personally, I don't need the data to show that A causes C, if that makes sense. You kind of and infer from that. And again, when we're not talking about crazy chemotherapy drugs or addictive, mood stabilizing medications, I'm down to roll the dice on that. And I put it in air quotes because to me, it's not that much of a risk. And when I'm talking to clients, I'm always transparent. And I say these things, and it's these types of mutations, this supplement, this has been shown in humans. This one has not, but you can literally go to Vitamin Shop and buy it already. So if it was that hazardous to human health, you wouldn't be able to buy it already. So I'm pointing you in the right direction.
Man, that's interesting. Yeah, I know quite a few people who are on SSRIs, and they say that they just feel kind of like zombies. They feel like they can't enjoy life. And I'm blessed. I've never really had an SSRI. I don't really take any medicine. But like I've had a few of them have started microdosing occasionally, and they're like, I feel more at peace. I actually feel positive emotion. I'm able to smile more. I'm like, man, is this interesting? Why is it that these plants that grow on the ground, why have they been illegal while Big Pharma has been pushing these SSRIs? It just seems so interesting, and I'm very glad that it seems like there's a revolution that's occurring. Like
Absolutely.
More and more people are becoming aware of the value of psychedelic therapy, and I'm very glad about that because it's annoying when it's kind of all underground and you can't really talk about it, but now that it's becoming the forefront of things. I'm just so excited to see what they are going to find next about it.
Yeah, and I think the future for that field, it's going to be a lot of, they're going to make analogs to these substances. So, like they're developing a analog of psilocybin that has a much shorter half-life. And the reason why they're doing that is A, so they could patent it, because you can't patent the psilocybin molecule itself, because at the end of the day, that's not necessarily, a super insidious thing to do. At the end of the day, these are businesses. It's they may be, more holistic, mindful, or like ahead of the curve versus some of these other big pharma SSRI companies. But at the end of the day, it is a business at the end of the day. So they do need to make sure they get their money. But also, if you have a psilocybin analog that lasts, let's say, half as long, you can take that in a clinical setting. The session is half as long. So you're paying clinicians half as much. So the price for the patient is half as much. So it's more accessible. I know some of these ketamine infusion therapies cost like thousands per session because you need to pay the pharmacist or, the anesthesiologist or whoever's there to actually dose it. You need to pay the clinicians there to, watch over them, watch their vitals. You need to pay the psychiatrist to help them integrate this during the session and after the session so they could talk about it. So all of these professionals did 8-10 years of schooling to get there. They need to be paid too. And they're very important too because, we need to make sure we nail the clinical side of these things, the therapeutic side. That's not to say eating some mushrooms with your buddies in the field can't be beneficial, but we need to make sure we validate it properly and it's done properly and really changes lives clinically first. So I'm not going to sit here and say, it should all be legalized for everyone right now because there are some people with genetic mutations that are much more prone to psychotic breaks due to these medicines as well. And there are some companies that are utilizing genetic testing to predict how you respond to these therapies. You could figure out your tolerance, how much you need, what's the possible risk of side effects, et cetera, if you're a candidate for these types of therapies. So yeah, the recreational side, it can be useful. Has it changed lives? Absolutely. Just doing it with friends and letting loose. Can that be beneficial in of itself, independent of the psilocybin? Absolutely. But again, I think really making sure we nail the clinical side of these things is very important first step because if we screw up and then legalize something too quick or something, and a lot of people start having really bad issues or people start dying or whatever, they're going to shove this back down for another 40 years again, just like they did. So it'll be coming eventually. I think psilocybin will be FDA approved by 2020. I think 2025. MDMA will be FDA approved next year for PTSD. So LSD will probably be couple of years after psilocybin. They're doing research on DMT for everything from strokes to autism to addiction. So it's the Wild West out there right now. They're really resurfacing all this. Like you said, a revolution. I think of it as like the psychedelic renaissance. We're really coming back full circle with all of these things because people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Or in the case of SSRIs, they're not stressed, but they're zombies. Because again, you may be upping their serotonin when dopamine's their issue, or histamine's their issue, or neurotrophins are their issue. You're just doubling up their serotonin that's already normal, so it's going to be largely side effects, and you're not fixing the root cause there.
Man, yeah, that was very well said. I love the nuance from you, as always. Like you don't just bringing it all back, like having shroom shops on every corner, it might not be the wisest move,
Yes.
like you said. There's people with different individual genetic makeups that might prone them towards psychotic breaks, and I've heard a few stories like that, and it that really helps me, like, because sometimes I hear people are like, oh, just everyone's got to try it, and I'm like, well, that's not nuanced because not everyone is the right fit for it. So and
I gotta say, regarding especially regarding those, so the classical psychedelics being like psilocybin, mescaline, LSD, DMT. I'll be the first to say I'm very pro all these substances, but I don't think every human on the face of the earth should try those ones specifically. Something like MDMA, something like ketamine, those are euphoric and calming, but on these other types of trips, you can, especially like LSD has a lot of dopamine activity, so you're much more stimulated. Like you can literally be tripping balls and like go and run somewhere and run and get hit by a car or something like that, you know, because it's like the way it alters your consciousness. Ketamine's more of a tranquilizer sedative. You're very chill, at peace. Even if you're getting a little weird in your head, it's a tranquilizer. It's a sedative. MDMA floods you with serotonin. You're so open, having a good time. You're so content with everything. Do I think the vast majority of people can benefit? Absolutely. But again, regarding these classical psychedelics, I don't think everybody should take them, especially because some people, not only just how sensitive they are to the drug themselves, but there also are mutations. Like you could have families that have, a schizophrenic family member with some psychiatric disorder. You and the rest of your family likely have those genes as well. Maybe not as many of them. Maybe there's other genes that help counteract that, but odds are pretty high. They're still lurking underneath there. So that could possibly be aggravated, especially if it's a non-clinically dosed trip at a music festival with all this crazy stimuli. Sure, it enhances it, but it can also, weird people around you. You don't know. You don't feel comfortable. It's always good until it's not. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, well said. I guess another discussion I kind of wanted to open up. Huberman recently did an episode on cannabis and the cons and pros, and I was curious what your opinion was from a pharmacologist perspective.
Yeah. So there's definitely pros and cons. As we know, cannabis is anti-inflammatory. It can help people with specific types of mutations. They may break down their body's own endocannabinoids faster than normal, which means their body's own version of T. Like we get high off cannabis, not because we evolved to get high off cannabis. It's because THC is similar enough in structure to our own version of THC that it binds the receptors in our brain and it makes us high. So you can have mutations in how you metabolize them. So you'll have lower levels of endocannabinoids than normal. And what do these endocannabinoids do? They regulate your mood, inflammation, sleep, anxiety. So all these things people utilize cannabis or CBD for, you literally are supplementing your body's own endocannabinoid levels. So for some people, I always like suggesting CBD first just because it boosts your endocannabinoids without any possible high or side effects. But cannabis as well just supplements your endocannabinoids as well. But there's also some data showing it can possibly affect telomeres, or it may possibly affect estrogen levels. And I feel like a lot of people, if you dig hard enough for literally any supplement, anything, you'll find some mechanism that is undesirable for you. Like lavender extract can help so well with anxiety, and some people say it could affect the estrogen levels in people. And it's like, you got to figure out where the pros outweigh the cons. At the end of the day, you could find something negative about any type of supplement. And just like any other substance, though, abuse is a very, very bad thing. If you use cannabis as a tool to help you sleep, even though it's been shown to disturb the cycling of sleep, it may disturb the sleep quality. If you have these mutations, you have lower endocannabinoids, you have problems going to sleep, that may be a net benefit for you. Is it the most perfect optimal sleep cycling ever? No. But I mean, Snoop Dogg's been smoking weed for how many years? And he hasn't died from Alzheimer's from lack of sleep. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's just all contextual with everything. The person's genetics, the use case of it. If you need to just smoke weed all day just to not be anxious at your job, you probably got to get a new job, But if you're using it as a tool to go to sleep and you're not doing it aggressively and you sleep better on it, who am I to say that that's, really, really bad for you? Then there's the whole other side of the creativity aspect for artists or, creative thinkers or even scientists. It adds a lot to that. And creativity is what drives innovation in the world. So I'm overall pro on CBD and cannabis. I just think, like everything, it needs to be taken with a grain of salt. And I must say, I think I've heard more horror stories about cannabis than any other drug. A lot of people think that it's, all the stoners say, it's so chill, it's whatever. People can lose their marbles. And I think a lot of that's because they breed cannabis now to have higher and higher amounts of THC because you get more high off it without raising the CBD with it. THC causes anxiety. CBD and other cannabinoids help negate it. So when you have a strain of marijuana that is crazy high in THC, low CBD, That's why people smoke it and they lose their marbles and they like, never again, I'm never smoking weed. And it sounds cliche, you got to find the right strain, but that actually is true. That actually is based in the science. But yeah, I think a lot of people can benefit from it, but also you don't know exactly what the profile is that you're getting with these things. And then also too, there's also the potential for heavy metal toxicity because the regulations aren't quite there. You could have heavy metal toxicity, you could have mold toxicity, and that can affect your health too. You could be smoking cadmium in some non-organic cannabis that you're smoking, and that can cause downstream effects on thyroid, etc. And you could name any substance and you could peel it back if you know enough about it and pitch it in a way that is factually correct, but pessimistic and scary versus beneficial and therapeutic.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the slight danger of any of this. It's like you can find 6 studies regarding the positivity of it or the negativity of it, and that it's kind of overwhelming, but there's also truth that can be found and nuance, that a common ground that can be found as well. So that
Absolutely. Like I could send you into vitamin shot with $50 and I could probably give you a heart attack if I just told you the wrong types of supplements to stack together. You know what I mean? If I were to combine some monoamine oxidase inhibitors with COMT inhibitors, with beta adrenergic agonists, with a bunch of catecholamine precursors, bunch of mumbo jumbo, but that would just mean so much stimulation and trapping stimulation and adrenaline in your brain and your body. I could fuck you up really, really bad with that and possibly kill you, but they're all listed there fine. It's just how you use these things. There's no good or bad drugs. The 2 substances that I would say are, more negative than positive, alcohol and cocaine are the 2 that I don't really see that much benefit from. Am I a social drinker? Yeah, for sure. But I developed, and I'm actually working on making this a product, 100% plant-based anti-hangover pill. So you probably saw Huberman's podcast about alcohol, how horrible that is for you. Well, alcohol itself actually isn't that bad for you. It's what your body turns it into, acetaldehyde, that's 50 times more toxic and causes at least 95% of the damage. So if I develop a product that helps you clear that acetaldehyde, you can still get drunk and not get a hangover and prevent that cellular damage. So I have that now. I've been trying to optimize it now. I hope to make that a product soon. But that itself, alcohol, if you're not protecting yourself like that, which products like that aren't really out there, it's directly linked to every type of cancer. And there's really it doesn't grow brain cells. It's literally a toxin poison to your body. Cocaine causes inflammation. It rewires your gene expression and hijacks your reward circuitry of your brain. So it makes you think it's way more fun than it actually is, because people can do, 1 cap of MDMA at a music festival. Nobody can do just 1 bump of cocaine. It's just not a thing, because your reward circuitry. And that's why you end up spending the whole night ignoring everyone else, just going to the bathroom with your buddies to do it every single time, because it's making it and consuming you. And on top of that, it causes inflammation. So yeah, I think pretty much most of the other substances out there, can be used as tools appropriately. There's really no good or bad substance aside from those 2, perhaps, just kind of the context, and the way in which you use them.
Man, that was really interesting. That hangover pill was really, really interesting. What kind of plants or what would be put in that pill? Or
yeah, so I don't want to say too much. I don't want to say too much yet,
Mm-hmm.
but essentially it's substance. It's plants that pretty much everyone's eaten around the grocery store, just either concentrated extracts or certain components, like a certain component from tomatoes, isolated in a purified form that's been shown to promote liver detoxification. A certain type of functional mushroom that's been shown to help upregulate certain types of enzymes in the liver. Vitamin C is something in there that helps a little bit to be a cofactor for these enzymes. So a couple different vegetable, fruit, tomatoes are fruit technically, little fungus extracts in a concentrated capsule. And yeah, literally take one of them, and if you're purposely on a suicide mission trying to just black the fuck out, yeah, you may wake up with a little bit of a hangover, but like, as long as you're within reason and hydrating, you'll wake up feeling virtually fine. And even if you're a complete shithead and just drinking yourself to death, you're going to wake up feeling, I say at least 60, 70% better, because, you'll still feel it, but you'll be processing that acetaldehyde, that toxic byproduct, as you're consuming it.
So you'd take the pill that night or the morning of?
So some people do before, some people do during, some people do after, but some of the competitors out there, they have a component in it called DHM, and that actually is a direct anti-intoxicant. So it prevents you from getting drunk. So theirs you have to take after you drink, but if you're out drunk, are you really going to remember to take the pill? So I'm designing mine so it doesn't affect the drunk at all, so you can take it preemptively. Me personally, I just take it with my first drink just because it's easy to remember.
And very interesting. I kind of want to switch topics to workout routine. Is this DNA individualized protocol also like include exercise? Like, do certain exercises work better for certain people, I guess is my question.
Yeah, so good question. So regarding that, that's more of like a biomechanics, like the length of your limbs and your bones and stuff, more so than the specific genetics. Like me, for example, I have very, very long legs and a shorter torso. So like I can't do like a shoulder distance apart like squat. I'll literally fall over. I need to like elevate my heels or something. So squatting doesn't work very well for me. I do a lot of like hack squats or goblet squats. But regarding exercise, there is a lot you can learn. Not necessarily the exact exercises you should be doing, but for example, you can find out if you're prone to excess lactic acid buildup, which means you will have much higher fatigue from exercise. You will fatigue earlier than someone without this mutation. And there's things you could take like baking soda, beta-alanine, and creatine. They've all been shown to help you buffer lactic acid. So I see clients, I see that mutation, and I'm like, do you exercise? They're like, yeah, I try. I'm just exhausted every time. I'm like, well, that's because you're accumulating so much more lactic acid than a normal person. They take those things before they work out, and they feel so much better. And, it's not super breakthrough. Beta-alanine's been used in pre-workouts forever. People have talked about baking soda, creatine, one of the most studied supplements for weightlifting. It's not revolutionary thinking, but just knowing who is the ideal candidate to be taking that. Or I have mutations in the NOS3 enzyme, which is the enzyme that produces nitric oxide to help dilate your blood vessels. So I've been a bodybuilder. I bodybuild for, I don't know, maybe the past 10, 15 years. And I found out this. I took something called agmatine sulfate, a modified form of the amino acid arginine, which directly gets converted into nitric oxide. And I take it before the gym now. The first time I took it, I was like, now I know what people mean by having a pump. I realize now my fingers and toes would be cold a lot of the time throughout my life. That's because I have poor circulation, because I'm not producing enough nitric oxide. It's also important for immune health. But first time I took it before the gym, I was like, oh my God, like I literally feel, that skin splitting pump all these bodybuilders talk about. Like I get it now. And it costs like maybe $40 for enough to have to take every single day for a year. And it's so cheap. But so like I said, you got the lactic acid buildup. You could have the blood flow. You can also have acetylcholine mutations. Acetylcholine is important for learning and memory, but also for muscle contractions. So that's why some pre-workouts will have choline in there, or huperzine A. That'll boost acetylcholine in your body so you feel your muscles, the squeezing and like the crunching of the muscle. It's all about, feeling the muscle, not just slinging the weight around if you're trying to build muscle like a bodybuilder. And you can figure out if you need additional choline support based on the genetics. So not exactly what exercise works the best, but you absolutely can optimize your biochemistry and your body to respond or train optimally.
Very interesting. It's just adding more evidence of why I should get tested and do this analysis.
I'm telling you, everyone, and I like to tell people too, even if the people that say, Tyler, I feel good all the time, and my response to that is this: those days where you sleep perfectly, you wake up, it just feels like a 10 out of 10 day. What if I told you that was like a 7.5 or 8 out of 10 day? So it's like, not saying that you're feeling bad, but like, what if there was another a little more, you could be a little more happier, a little more energetic, and get that little bit of boost? Because there's people that live very healthily. They don't have a lot of severe mutations, and they think they're fine. And then they work with me and they realize, oh, wow, like, I do have a little more energy. Oh, wow, like I do focus longer now because I did have mutations that lowered my dopamine slightly. Do they have ADD? No. Do they have ADHD? No, but you may be able to get that little bit of edge, a little bit more out of that to really optimize things. And I think a lot of people, and that's lucky if you spend most of your days at an 8 out of 10. I think most people are hovering around like people that aren't in hospitals, like most Americans, I think are hovering around like probably like a 5 to 6.5, honestly. And once in a while, they'll have a stellar day that's like a 7, 7.5. And they'll think that's the best day ever.
Man, amazing. What's your opinion of cardio slash hit workouts? Keeping your cardio up. I'm not sure if you know.
Yeah. So I'm big on the hit train, hit cardio.
Yeah.
It's me personally, it saves time. I also kind of just enjoy how it feels like I like to think of it as, I don't know if it's necessarily based in like science, but just I think like how do like lions and tigers, like how do they literally stalk prey and they're all after it versus like a gazelle or something that's slowly jogging and going, or look at Olympic sprinters versus Olympic long distance runners. Like my quads get more sore after doing a couple of hit sprint workouts than after a regular quad workout. And it's been shown to help you burn more fat after you work out. So you may not burn it more. It's called the EPOC, the exercise post oxygen consumption, which means you may burn more calories doing a 40-minute jog. But if you do 15 minutes of all out sprint workouts, throughout the rest of the day, your basal metabolic rate will be elevated and you'll be burning more calories throughout the day overall. Now, the downside of that is you can't do, if you're doing a real hit workout, you can't do that every day or every other day. Like if I do a full hit workout, I got to rest for at least 3-4 days after that for my quads to recover. Because you really want to have it be all out high intent. And you also can't do, when people tell me they do a 45-minute hit workout, it's not intense enough. Like if you're doing all out sprints, you literally like, after 4 of those, I'm absolutely gassed. And my legs feel like absolute jello. That's not to say I also do like the walking, the low steady state cardio. I kind of either do that or the sprints. I don't really like doing, the long type jogs. I have plenty of runner friends, like not saying necessarily bad. However, I think that it's the overall mileage on the knees and stuff with impact. So walking, very low impact. Hit is high impact, but it's a shorter duration. So I would think it's the joggers over years and decades. They're the ones I think they're going to have most of the, connective tissue, bone, knee issues, etc. So I love the hit cardio. It really makes me feel good, and it's been shown to actually suppress appetite as well, which is especially good if you're trying to lose weight. I have a huge appetite, always have, and after a hard hit workout, I'll get a protein shake in, but like I won't eat for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours afterwards. And if I'm trying to, lean out a little bit for summer or whatever, I'm fine with that. I know I'm getting my protein in. I know I'm not starving myself, but if I could suppress my appetite like that for a bit, that's a win-win for me.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I love hit. I kind of incorporate a lot of kettlebell swings and burpees and maybe less impact than sprints, but I should do some sprints. But yeah.
Well, I actually did a couple of weeks ago. My friend, she does one of those like circuit functional training type things. I wouldn't call it CrossFit, kind of like I guess, but like we went and did that to one of her classes and like absolutely wrecked me. Like I'm used to doing bodybuilding stuff intense, but then you rest, you recover, but constantly doing that. I felt so horrible for 2 hours after because I built up so much lactic acid because my body's not used to that. So I definitely see a benefit to that. And, everyone's different. What's going to interest you the most and keep you the most adherent to it? I think that's the most important above all else. If you don't like doing hypertrophy bodybuilder style training, you're not going to do it intensely. You're not going to get that great of results. You're not going to stick to it. And that goes for diets as well.
Fair enough. Yeah. I guess what would be a book or a podcast or a person that you recommend any of the listeners to, if they want to do a deeper dive into learning about this pharmacology or genetic analysis? Who do you really trust in this sphere?
I wouldn't say who I really trust, but I'm going to be totally honest here. I don't really read too much. Like I read papers about genetics, but regarding my sphere, what I'm doing, there's some other genetic coaches out there, that are good at what they do. But I'm kind of honestly looking more so just independently myself. And it's really nice as I'm doing that to see data come out or to see some other, esteemed professor, someone like a Huberman. I mean, I love Huberman. He's awesome, but it's like regarding just a different type of context. You know what I mean? Like with my practice, what I'm trying to do, I'm the type of person I like trying to figure that out myself and, try with myself, try with some clients with the according mutations. So I really should do, honestly, more reading, like actual books and stuff like that. But regarding like a genetics source, like a specific page I follow, it's more so just some of these other coaches that may say a couple of things. But that's kind of like here and there, little nibbles and bits. Or, obviously everyone knows Huberman, Rhonda Patrick, very, very important as well. But not too many off the top of my head. There's obviously, I idolize Huberman. I want to be, if I could get be a little bit like him, a little bit like Rhonda Patrick, a little bit like, Joe Rogan, a little bit like Tim Ferriss, like all these people are inspirations. But regarding like the genetic side, what I'm trying to do, I'm kind of just sort of trying to innovate on my own in that sector. If that makes sense.
Dr. Tyler
I don't want to make
Panzner.
someone else and lie to you. You know what I mean?
No, yeah. You're going to be the next you're going to be the guy, the genetic guy, in my opinion. Your knowledge is very full.
And that's what I'm trying to be, And I think it's just, it can just be applied to literally everything, all these sleep, focus, any different aspect. And that's not to say that lifestyle stuff can't complicate things. You may not have mutations in how you process histamine, which causes like allergy symptoms or brain fog or lethargy. You may not have the mutations there, but you could have a gut dysbiosis. So bad bacteria in your gut, that could be causing your histamine intolerance independent of the genetics. So, it's never genetics or everything. I just think people throw out that one quote from some study from years ago, how 90% of disease is epigenetic related, less than 10% is genetics. I just think that's straight up BS. I just think genetics load the gun with these things. Does everyone with this certain mutation have anxiety? No, but these convergent mutations, you don't have enough GABA, so you're not as calm. You have too much adrenaline in your body. You don't have enough endocannabinoids. All three of these together will all converge to make you a very stressed out person. So, if I could be the genetics guy, that's kind of what my niche is, set me up to be. And, I'm all for it. I'm sure it's already starting to happen now. I have like 7,000 followers or so now. I'm starting to get some of the haters, it's not evidence-based or, lifestyle is everything, this and that. Don't take vitamin D, get your sunlight. Well, I have a mutation. I will never synthesize enough vitamin D from sunlight, ever. I've been in the middle of the summer, super tan. I love the beach. I'm outside every day, and I'm still deficient in vitamin D. So people that say these things, they don't understand the nuance. Some people need high doses of vitamin D year round. Some people don't, and they're taking it as a crutch. And if that's the case, I would tell them, you don't have that mutation. You should get outside. Because if you don't need it, don't take it.
Man, I love that. I certainly am going to do a test here probably in the next week because this is the nuance that you're explaining and just that individualized treatment. It's so attractive to me. So I'm really looking forward to that. What would be, I guess, your closing thoughts? Like, would you think any person should get a DNA test? Like, out of any?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously I'm highly biased with this, but I think absolutely everybody can. I've had parents reach out to me for their children, 7, 10, 12-year-old child that, was either put on medication and it messed them up more, they want to get off it, or they have all their doctors pushing them to take Zoloft, SSRIs, or Adderall. The child's 7 years old. They can't focus as well, and, we go and look, and they have histamine intolerance, so they're highly prone. They need additional support for that, so they're living with this brain fog. That's why they can't focus. Or, people that are older that want to try to extend their lifespan for longevity. You can try to figure out, for example, you can see if you have mutations that make you prone to strokes or embolisms. So the mutations in how your blood clots, you're more prone to blood clots. If you're one of those people and you're, 50 or older, you probably want to start baby aspirin to help counteract that specific mutation. You can also, or if you have a higher risk for Alzheimer's disease based on fatty acid metabolism, you want to watch what type of fat you put in your body. So the whole other side of that is, imagine you could figure out the top 2 or 3 ways you're most likely to genetically die from. And I'm not going to say, I saw some BS floating around, you could predict someone's death within a couple of months based on the genetics. That's total bullshit. But like, knowing which things you could be more predisposed to. If you're predisposed to type 2 diabetes, you may want to alter your diet or take certain type of insulin sensitizing supplements, herbal extracts with your carbohydrates to make sure you compensate that lack of insulin sensitivity. So yeah, I obviously think everybody can benefit from genetic sequencing. For everyone listening, SelfDecode, Instagram page, selfdecode.com, or check out my page, Dr. Tyler Panzner. I have a code for SelfDecode, Dr. Panz, DRPANZ. I always suggest the Premium Health Insights Kit, and then you save 15% with my code on that. But people sometimes do the basic report. They save $150. They get 15 reports. But for like another $150, you can get access to over 200 reports now, and you get access to all the future reports. They add reports basically every week. New data will come out hot off the press. They'll make a new report or update a report. And once your data's in there, you have an account, you just click generate all and you regenerate the reports. And I tell people, you may find a year from now, because you have the unlimited access for the future with this account, there may be a new breakthrough study for some certain type of vitamin with some type of disorder or ailment you may have. You have this report come up and you could have your puzzle piece, perfect treatment supplement that comes from you investing in yourself and SelfDecode from a year ago. So I think it's totally going to change the world, and I'm really excited to see this should be implemented to regular healthcare practice. Why isn't anyone, when they go to get their routine blood work done, why aren't they checking these things? It should just be, I absolutely believe, I don't know if it's going to be 3 years, 5 years. I would think within 10 years, it'll definitely be implemented. Genetic sequencing is getting cheaper and cheaper over time. It used to be millions of dollars. Now it used to be thousands. Now the DNA test kit itself on its own is just $100. So that's going to keep getting lower as well. The technology is going to get better. And I really think a genetic revolution is coming. The personalization is everything. The reason why some people respond, some people don't, is the genetics. The reason why people are how they are is largely in part the genetics. Can lifestyle and traumas affect that? Absolutely. But there's genetic mutations that make you more prone to psychological stress and PTSD. So there's also genetics that dictate how your body responds to lifestyle as well. So it's kind of like when it all comes full circle, genes are key. Are they absolutely everything for everyone always, all the ailments? No, I will never say that. But I think everybody can benefit to at least some significant degree by understanding their genetics.
You made a great case right there. That's awesome. I'm going to throw all those links in the description, and hopefully a lot of people use your practice, because I really think it impacts people positively. That
absolutely. And then,
analysis.
Absolutely. I did mention too, as a practitioner too, I also do like the one-on-one with the client. So that's not included with the SelfDecode, but I've had people that I tell them, if you're inquisitive and you want to learn and not just be told what to do, get an account, the Premium Insights, check it out. I've had people that they get that, they take 2 or 3 of their supplement recommendations, and they're like, Tyler, this changed my life. I don't need your consult. And you know what? I'm happy. You know what I mean? I'm happy that you got value out of that, because I can't consult everyone in the world, even if I wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, there's only so much time in the day. But if people want that further insight to break it all down and compact it in, that's where I come in for the one-on-one clients to try and, really build something palatable for you. Or some people just want to be told what to do, and you can not get an account. I can order your kit and basically just do my analysis for you. But I can tell you already, you're a biohacker. You definitely got to get your own account. You're going to love you could research any gene you want, any mutation, it'll come up, check all the reports, get all the updates. So you'll definitely personally benefit a lot, I think, from having the actual account.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Tyler. It's been a true pleasure. I learned so much, and I have so many notes, and it just kind of showed how much I don't know about this topic, but that's always one of my favorite things, showing how much I don't know, because then I can hopefully improve. So I I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, great conversation. I hope I come back on another time. I feel like we could do another 2 hours easily. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So, awesome hour. Thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, let's keep in touch. And I really hope everyone here listening learned something of value today, because that's, at the end of the day, that's my overall goal as an educator, to improve others' quality of life through the education of biological principles. That's like my thesis statement right there.
It's an amazing thesis. On that note, perfect time to end.